Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, March 19th, 2019 meeting of the Dover Area School Board. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Benko, could we have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Britton?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Deschaux?
Here.
Mr. DeLauder?
Here.
Mr. Eifert?
Here.
Mr. Emig? Mrs. Herman?
Here.
Mrs. Maley?
Here.
Mr. Rawhauser?
Here.
7 members present and 1 online.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for your patience as we work through our executive session prior to this meeting, and also with our new experiment tonight. Mrs. Brenton is traveling for work, so we are having her call in for the meeting so that she can participate in the session tonight. First up, we have our communications period. This is for our student board representatives to share with us what's happening in our buildings. So, ladies, the floor is yours.
For the elementary report, all of our elementary schools are preparing for our PSSA exams that will take place in the month of April and into May. We are wishing our students lots of success as they take the assessments. This past week, our schools participated in many career-based activities as part of Career Week. Whether it be a college, trade, or military, we want our elementary students to be thinking about their future career possibilities. The end of the third marking period is coming quickly. Monday, March 25th will complete our third marking period. Report cards will be available on April 3rd. For the secondary report, Pennies for Patients fundraiser is in full swing at the intermediate school. The finale assembly will be held on March 29th. The IS held their annual Showcase of the Stars. During this event, student projects for Tech Ed, Art, FSC, and STEM were on display. The music program was spotlighted by student vocal and instrumental performances. PE shared a running video of students participating in various activities. The students and faculty advisors of the VEDM Club prepared an assembly for the students of the intermediate school on the topic of bullying. A group of intermediate school students participated in the Associated Builders and Contractors Keystone Chapter, Construction Wars, a hand-on career exploration event. The Guidance Department is sponsoring a new career awareness program called Crunch. Crunch provides students the opportunity to meet and talk to professionals from various careers. Thus far, we have had 3 professionals share their experiences with our students. Several students were recognized in the Scholastic Arts Awards program. Chloe Stevens received honorable mention in the poetry category. Ethan Snyder received a Golden Key Award in the fashion category, and Kaylee Renfrew received a Gold Key Award in the photography category. Additionally, she was named the regional winner of the American Visions Award. Kaylee will be recognized later this year in New York City. Ethan and Kaylee both have had their work on display at the State Museum in Harrisburg through May.
On April 2nd, DHS will host a Resurgence Rally. This event will feature Mike Smith, a national speaker who works to motivate student action for positive change in their school and community. DHS will host a regional session in the morning and a school program in the afternoon. The VEDM facilitated an awareness program concerning mental health for all students at the high school. They ran a digital information session, facilitated a student health fair. DHS will host its mini-thon on April 6th and 7th. This event raises money to support the Four Diamonds Fund. This week, a group of students was able to visit Penn State Hershey Medical Center to see how their efforts support pediatric cancer programs. In the fine arts, the drama department concluded its run of Back to the 80s. Congratulations to all the students who put on a fantastic musical, and thank you to our community for supporting our drama program. Our music students will be traveling this week to New Orleans. During the trip, they will hold several performances and visit key sites in the area. The Music in Our Schools concert was held last week. This event showcased students from throughout the district. In athletics, senior Elijah Sutton was named the YAIAA Division II Boys Basketball Player of the Year. Keith Davis and Victor Dorm were named second team YAIAA All-Stars. Freshman Mason Lippert competed at the PIAA State Wrestling Championships early this month. He made it to the last competitive rounds on Friday, finishing in the top 12 in the state.
Any questions from our board members? Okay, thank you very much, ladies. Now we'll move on to our presentations and celebrations. First, we have our North Salem Elementary STEM presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I invited some of North Salem's finest this evening to come and share our STEM initiatives this year at North Salem Elementary.
1 minute, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get it up.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Breitner. I teach science and social studies here at North Salem Elementary. The purpose of the STEM lab is to provide a space that's equipped with multiple tools and resources that are for the teachers and students, just so they can utilize them when they're learning or even expanding on a concept. We want to prepare students to become innovators that are utilizing the 21st century skills in order to solve the problems of tomorrow. Our mission here at Dover is to provide students with learning opportunities that are built on the STEM core beliefs that focus on higher order and critical thinking, engaged learning, authentic connections, and even the use of technology as a tool. Some of the resources that we have available in the STEM lab are 3D pens. My students are currently making 3D planets. We have coding robots that are for all level learners, such as the Bee-Bot for younger primary grades. We also have the Transformer coding robot that can transform into 6 different types of robots for the higher level learners. We also have a lot of Legos, manipulatives, just pre-made kits that the teachers can just grab and go, and they meet all of the demands of the objectives that are taught in that specific grade level. So it's just a fun place for the kids and teachers to come, and it houses many resources and tools to help us evolve and become better students and better teachers.
Hi, I'm Emily Ronaldo. I teach 3rd grade at North Salem Elementary School, and this is Trout in the Classroom. I recently asked for a Dover Eagle Foundation grant, and it was awarded to 3rd grade here at North Salem. My 3rd graders are in charge of coming in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to feed the fish and check on the water levels. And the students are checking in with that, and then they work on creating a website for the rest of North Salem to look at and see how our fish are doing. With Trout in the Classroom, we also have Trout Unlimited that is helping us. They provided the fish tank and the chiller to help our fish grow. Okay, so I am the 3rd grade teacher, and I do Trout in the Classroom, and the 3rd graders are pretty much in charge of it. They learned how to do everything in November, and each week, every 2 weeks, I pick 6 new students from 3rd grade. They go down, they go with an aide, they feed the fish, they check all of the different chemical levels using this, and what they have to do is they have to follow the directions. So the aide is helping them, and they check off everything, and at the end of the day, I'm able to go down and check on that. So they're gonna kind of tell you a little bit about what they do.
Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 6th, 3rd grade students go to the STEM lab and take care of our trout. The 6 students follow directions for checking water chemical levels counting the fish, and feeding the fish. Every 2 weeks, these groups change. My favorite part about taking care of the fish was feeding them. My favorite part about taking care of the fish was testing the chemicals. I also liked feeding the fish.
Do you guys want to talk about this? No? Okay. And then this, this is
Can you
Brooklyn.
guys just, I'm sorry, talk into the microphone because we won't hear you on the
Sorry.
recording.
This is Josh and Brooklyn, and then we have Reese and Tyler, who are the 4th grade students who are going to talk about the 3D pens.
Can you put the microphone closer, please? Thank you.
So basically what we did with the 3D pens is we basically waited for the 3D pens to heat up, and then we put the filament in, and then we made all different shapes, and we ended up actually making planets. If we couldn't get the filament to stick on the 3D, we would do a 2D planet. This one is mine, it's Earth. And then we have another one, it's Venus. And then Reese can show the 3D planets.
The three-dimensional planets, or we did an asteroid here from the asteroid belt. There's Neptune, Saturn, and Jupiter. Like he said, if we couldn't get it to stick, we did the 2D planets, Earth and Venus.
All right, thank you.
Any questions about our STEM initiatives this year?
That looks like a lot of fun. Do you guys enjoy doing that every day? Yeah. Very cool stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight. Good job. Okay, moving right along, special education with Mrs. Geyer.
All right, I'm going to sit down because if I stand, I tend to move a lot, so that's not going to be a good thing. I wanted to just give you a brief overview of the special ed plan that should be in your board packet. This plan is something that will go to vote next month, so I wanted to make sure in the interim while you have it, if you have any questions, you have a few guides to keep in mind, but also that way, if you do have any questions, please feel free to either call me, email me. I'll be glad to sit down with you and go over any questions that you might have. Jen, can you switch to the next one for me? Sorry. Thanks. All right. So a few things to keep in mind with the special ed plan is it does need to be updated every 3 years. That is a requirement. It's part of the comprehensive plan that we're working on right now, but it does have to be approved separately by the school board. It also has to be approved separately by PDE, which is why I'm bringing it to you now. Some things to keep in mind, there are different sections that you're going to see when you look through. It's a 20-page document that you'll have. Just some of the key points to remember is that while this is a plan, it really is just a matter of, are we staying in compliance with Chapter 14? So they look for things like identification methods. Are we making sure that we are identifying the students within our district the way we should be? It's a very long, this section, the core foundations, actually lots of words, a lot of stuff to read. If we have incarcerated students, students who are in jail while they are still Dover students, are we providing them the education that they need? How are we addressing least restrictive environment? In other words, are we making sure that the students that we have are with their regular education peers as much as possible during the school day? We have to explain all those things with very pointed detail that they actually say this, they give you bullet points that you need to address, and you'll be able to see that in the document. The other two things that we must address also are whether we have other facilities within our district. So for example, York Learning Center. It's an IU building, but it's actually within Central School District. So for example, when Dr. Lease has to do her report to the state, she has to include how the Central School District is working with the IU for that building. We don't have any in our district, so that's a blank section. I want to make sure you understand that. And also something we don't want to have, which we're very lucky, is that we have nothing which is noted as significantly disproportionate. And that means if the state would look and say, why do you have so many kids in separate facilities? Why do you have so many kids who are spending the majority of their day without their regular education peers? That would mean we are significantly disproportionate, and we would have to report those findings to the state. We are not in any way, shape, or form close to ever being there, so you're good to go. You don't want to see that in a report. We also have to list things that we do as far as behavior support services. We have to explain what the PBIS program looks like within a district, what kinds of mental and behavioral supports we're offering. And then how are we working with others? Interagency coordination. So for example, when students hit 14 and above, we have to start planning for what they're going to do when they leave us. And so how are we working with outside agencies such as the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation to make sure that whether students go to college, whether they go onto a career, how are we coordinating those, bringing those people in and keeping parents informed in that process? And then for our hard to place students, we just sometimes have those students who we're just not sure what the best placement is because of trauma that they have experienced or other factors in their lives. We want to make sure that we are all working together with outside agencies to make sure that their supports that they receive are most appropriate at that time. So we have to explain in the document how we do that as a school district. All right, the next section is assurances, and it's nothing but math, let me tell you. It's a very long section. The first section is the least restrictive environment. You will see that there is a list, and I gave you one example of the different locations where students are receiving services outside of the school district. So I wanted to show you what that meant. So for example, you see Spring Grove Senior High School. We have to list it as a neighboring school district, the type of service, which is autistic support. The reason is because we don't have that at the high school level yet. The reason we have an N is because all of the students on that column are going to be less than 10. When you start to really be able to define how many students in that particular area are identified, you're starting to worry about, are you really kind of broaching their privacy, looking at FERPA, things like that. So all of those documents, all those numbers on a public document are N, and that's why you'll see that. We do have students there, but because it's less than 10, we keep it as an N. When I upload this to the state, it will be with the actual number because the state needs to see that for compliance. Okay? The next section, you're going to see a lot of pages on this, not in this document, but in the one you haven't. You'll see 41 program positions. Program positions are classrooms or teachers that are within our district, in our buildings. What this one particular one shows you, I just want to walk you through it so you understand what you're looking at. This, as you can see, is for one particular teacher at North Salem Elementary. This teacher happens to be a learning support teacher, and she works with students ages 9 to 12. It has to be that specific. And then we have to look at each teacher's caseload each year and calculate how many students are receiving what level of service. So for the 17 students that she has on her roster, one student is supplemental, which means she spends about the medium amount of time with the teacher during the day. The other 16 students are spending an itinerant amount of time, which is the least or the smallest level of support. Less than 20% of the school day, those students are receiving support from a special ed teacher, which means the majority of the time they're out with their regular ed peers in the regular ed setting getting core curriculum, which is what we want to see. We really want to have those numbers much higher in the itinerant than the actual supplemental or full-time. You'll also see the special education support services, so anything other than teachers. There are multiple pages of the other people in our department. It has to be one person per line. So you'll see like one PCA, what they are, where they are. For every PCA, they're listed separately. Every paraprofessional is listed separately. They want to see that. We can't just combine numbers. And then you'll also see contracted services, so like occupational therapy related services such as that are not necessarily a classroom. We have to calculate how much time they spend in our building per week. And any other support staff that are in IU classrooms housed in our district. For example, we house emotional support classes. They have staff members. We have to report how many of their staff is in each of the building for how many hours per week. It's not something that really significantly impacts us, those things, but it does impact when we're talking about planning for each year as far as how much support we need to provide as a school district for our students. So the only real plan part of the plan is the professional development plan. And for this plan, PDE actually chooses the 5 areas. We don't get a chance to do that. So what I did is when I gathered our committee, I asked them to think about those 5 areas and what were topics underneath those 5 areas that they would like to see supports for. And it's not something that you can just pick and choose all these different types of supports. It's here's one thing for autism, one thing for reading, one for behavior support. And you have to put 3 years worth of a plan into one section. So it's not as detailed as I would like it to be, but that's fine for the state because then that means we can tweak it as we need to, as long as we're meeting the needs every year of what we do have in the plan. What I did do when I was choosing the professional development and talking with the committee, I really wanted to look at what are the initiatives that we already have going on in the district. It's really important for everyone in the district, especially our teachers, to see the interconnectedness between all the different initiatives that we have. So for example, when we talk about behavior supports, these are things that we talk about all the time with responsive classroom, PBIS, with de-escalation techniques, all those kinds of things, making sure that we're all in all coordinated and all those things. So there's nothing that's really new in that document. It's what are we already doing? We're just deepening the understanding for our stakeholders. It is a 3-year time period, like I mentioned, and we have to write down how much it might cost us and the funding source. Just so you know, those are already things included in the budget, and it's actually minimal because, like I said, I'm coordinating with all the other initiatives that we have. So that's actually the document. It will be, as of tomorrow, open for public view for 28 days. That's a requirement of the state. And then it will go to a board vote in April. After that vote, Mrs. Kroom and Mr. Eifert will need to sign it, and we'll upload it to the department for the May 1st deadline. And then what they do is the state just says, yes, we like it. No, you want to fix these things, those kinds of things. I've already submitted to our SPOC, our special ed advisory person for our area, and she's already reviewed it, and she said she doesn't see any issues whatsoever with the document. So it's nice to submit it and not know you're going to have to fix anything. So that's a very quick overview. Questions now? I know that was a lot.
Questions? Okay.
All right. So if
Thank
you have anything in the next several weeks, just email me or call me. Okay?
Thank you, Mrs. Schuyler. Okay, next up is Mrs. Benko with the preliminary budget presentation for 2019-2020.
Okay. This will be a joint effort between a few of our, myself and a few of our administrators. So we have completed our preliminary review of our financials and our budget planning process for the 1920 school year. It's just to give you some history of financial operations. None of this data should be brand new to you. I think we're aware that there are many surpluses throughout the last 5 years, 6 years or so. In 2018, we saw a small surplus of $270,000, but know that that also includes a transfer out to the capital projects fund, so we can make sure we have money in place to help minimize the tax impact of our current capital project. Currently, where we stand for 2019, we are projecting to end with a $1.2 million deficit. Again, this includes a transfer out to our capital projects fund of approximately $1 million. If you remember back in May of last year, the 18-19 budget included a $2 million deficit. So I think without that transfer out to the capital projects fund, we're looking at about even right now. So we had some really good things come our way. Cost decreases. Our special ed costs weren't as high as we thought they were going to be, but they were still high. Some cost savings through retirements and some students that didn't get placed where we thought they were going to get placed and so on. So that's where we stand about right now. Okay. So when we started our initial planning of the 2019-20 budget, we did a survey of our staff, our students, our board, and our community to see what their what big issues that they wanted us to address through our budgetary processes and also through our comprehensive planning process. So our budgeting objectives and goals for the 1920 school year were to ensure the district is implementing appropriate safety measures to allow for the mitigation of risk and of the risk of security issues. We also wanted to make sure we were going to provide supports for our growing social emotional needs of our students, and I think that's kind of been a theme this year of a lot of the information that we are receiving in our district. Again, we wanted to continue to direct resources to our educational programs and classrooms while allowing for the collaboration and leadership of our professional staff. We wanted to make sure and guarantee that there were avenues so we can guide our students to be both either college or career ready upon graduation. We wanted to evaluate and ensure proper funding was in place for the needs of the district's exceptional students, along with students with language barriers. We're seeing many more students come in with those language barriers and not English as a first language, but English as a second or third language. We continue to build and enhance technology supports for students and staff, moving towards that 21st century learning environment. We maintained our budget methodology through a site-based budget methodology for the building budgets, but we also encouraged a zero-based budgeting culture, and we do that here at Central Office. We started at zero when we're doing the budgets. And we wanted to continue to manage and control fund balance levels for both the general fund and the capital reserve funds as we move through our current building projects and as we plan for future needs of the district through our buildings. So the 1920 preliminary budget components, and these are included currently in our budget, start with staffing adjustments. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Kroom and Dr. Maloney to talk about some of the things here.
So the first thing we are looking at for the next year's budget is to take the current intermediate school dean and eliminate that position and convert it to an assistant principal. Because that position wouldn't start until until August, that would be no additional cost impact to the budget. However, we wanted to bring this forward to you as we have put instructional practices in place this school year, as we are focusing on observations and walkthroughs and looking at curriculum. We feel that we need our administrators to be in the best possible position and enough administrators to go into classrooms and work with teachers to improve instruction. So we and the dean position is in the teaching contract, so it is not a supervisory position. So we are asking to convert that dean position to an assistant principal at the intermediate school. Additionally, as we are looking towards bringing the 6th grade up in another year, that is something that we are going to have another whole grade there. We think that's very important. The second group is 4 ILTs per elementary. Currently, each building has ILTs, instructional leaders of technology, and they work with the principals and they help with technology, they help with some other things in each of the buildings, and those positions are not paid. They are volunteer positions and they meet during the school day. Well, at the high school, we have curriculum, we have instructional leaders. At the IS, we have instructional leaders, but at the elementary, we have no paid instructional leadership types of positions. So we are asking the board to consider 4 ILTs per elementary at a stipend of about $500 each. Then we are asking for a K-6 English and Math department chair. These are to work across all elementary schools. It is, again, a stipend. It's not an additional position. It's a stipend, about $1,000 each, and it would be added on to a current ELA or math person in one of the elementaries. Their role would be to make sure that we are being consistent through all of the 4 elementary schools, making sure our curriculum, our materials, our instruction, our pacing is all equitable among all 4 elementary schools. We are also requesting we will have an additional teacher at Dover Elementary as the third grade moves to fourth grade, that we would like to convert that position to an elementary math coach, and that also is no additional cost on the budget. We are seeing huge success at the intermediate school with a middle school math coach, and this person would work directly with teachers on their instruction and with the curriculum. So we are looking to do that. And last, we feel that at the high school we are pretty well staffed right now, and in the phys ed department, and we feel that at the intermediate school we need another phys ed teacher. And with the sixth grade coming up in another year, this is very important. So we are asking that we take a high school phys ed teacher and split them between the IS and the high school. Again, that's no additional cost to the impact. Dr. Maloney, anything to add to any of that?
You covered those well.
Good. We'll talk about the curriculum-related services.
The first one is we are looking to add additional funds in our contracted services through the Lincoln Intermediate Unit for English as a second language. We currently have 2 staff members that cover all 6 buildings. And with our increasing population, it's becoming more difficult to service our children adequately. So we're looking to use the IU on a contracted service basis to increase our ability to provide service next year. Science materials and resources, this is our last year for our current interactive science book through Pearson Learning, and we have not had the opportunity to have a process to identify new materials. So that's we're asking for the funds for the resources to just continue what we currently have for one more year, until we can run a process and identify perhaps a new resource for our K-8 science.
Under guidance services, we currently have a guidance secretary at the high school that is a 10-month secretary. And if you remember, we combined the guidance and the CTE secretaries into one position a year ago. We truly believe that we need this to be a 12-month position. In the guidance department, we feel someone should be there every day. Scheduling and student concerns that come in during the summer when the counselors might not be there. So we feel pretty strongly that we do need someone in there 12 months. Additionally, we are asking for, just for this summer, to add some guidance summer hours for the guidance counselors. We have a number of procedures. Now that we are catching kids early who struggle, as soon as they get to the high school, we need to catch them, and we need to put together a plan that triggers support for them immediately. So we are asking the guidance counselors to put in some summer hours and put some significant planning together, all the way from coming from 8th grade to the graduation. If you remember, during our Future Ready Index, our cohort graduation rate wasn't as good as it should be. Again, we need to be picking up these kids sooner, so we need the counselors to put together a plan for that purpose. For social emotional services, we are asking the board to consider that we hire a second social worker to provide additional supports. As we've shared our data about our students, and Kirsten is doing an absolutely amazing job, but the more we do for kids, the more we need to do, and we are learning that our students do need quite a bit of services. So we are asking for an additional social worker for next year. And then, Mrs. Geyer, would you like to just comment a little bit on the new autistic support class at the IS?
Sure. If you build it, they will come. They came. When we took back our classes from the IU, we had 2 autistic support classes. Since then, we've had to increase that to a 3rd. Part of the reason is because, as per Chapter 14 guidelines, you can only have 8 students in an autistic support classroom. So we actually have 6 students this year, for next year, who are ready to move into the intermediate school. We see a great benefit of them staying with us because there's just so much we can do. We've benefited greatly from our relationship with Patton at the state because it's all free services, and they've just really enhanced what we can do for our students. And so when we look at this, breaking it down, I started with, if we would decide to go with an IU class instead and take those 6 students and move them into the IU, based on what we would be spending next year per student, we're looking at $233,000 alone just for the classroom itself, which is about what we would be spending if we took the class back, if we have the class here. The paraprofessional class is actually included in that, but then these students, if they have PCAs in their IEP, we are required to provide that. So whether we provide that service or the IU, there's going to be a cost. And then perhaps, we don't know, we have a student who is starting to have some higher needs. You might need some more support for there. Hence the potential new 5-hour PCA. We're not quite sure. If you look at the other side, though, creating our own, we went high, just in case. The teachers that are coming into these classrooms have to have a very specific skill set. It's not a teacher you can just pull off and say, you're learning, you have a special education degree, you can teach autistic support. There's a lot of technical training involved. So we did plan a little high for that. When you take a look at, you see current, our plan is to actually move up. The people who are already working with our students are going to be moving into the intermediate school with them. So really we would be absorbing that cost. The cost is already there, we're already spending it, it's just going to move there. We might just have to incur a bit of a cost if we have new students moving into kindergarten with a higher cost.
If I could just note for 1 minute,
Yep.
I just want to note that those numbers include benefits, so
Yes.
medical benefits and PSERS. That's why they may seem inflated a little bit. Where the base salary for the new teacher is definitely not 110,000.
No.
But that is inclusive of benefits
Yes.
as well. So.
Yes. The last thing you see on this side is the supplies, furniture, books. Because we're starting brand new, we're going to need a little cushion to get supplies and books into the hands of the teacher. But that is actually a one-time cost. We'll still have to maintain those things each year like we would normally, but those costs are inflated simply for next year to get us the startup fund. Okay, so that's the proposal for next year.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to technology. Mr. Papa is going to explain some of the things that we've included in the budget. Please know that this equipment is, he's been able to manage it very well, and all of this new equipment does not increase the budget over prior year's budget.
Good evening. First, the MacBook replacements. That would be for high school, intermediate school staff. Full-size iPads for the teachers. They never received them last year. They'll get them this year. And the K through 2 students. This would make our district a full one-to-one full-size iPad for every student in the district. The microphones to comply with FCC requirements, that has to be completed by 2021. We did the high school 18-19, and 19-20, we want to do the rest of the schools and the one at the admin building. The data storage equipment, servers, and all that was purchased in 2009. End of life was 2014. We were able to get coverage until 2021. I think it's time to upgrade that equipment. During the last, I think when we first started with support contract, it was $15,000 for the year. This year, I'm paying $20,000. So there's a more increase. The older the equipment, you pay more for support. So it's definitely time to upgrade that. And Adenakid is our visitors security system. There's a new system coming out. It's called Envoy. It simply runs on a full-size iPad. That's how you would check in and out. If you think about it, full-size iPad already has a scanner in it. It already has a camera. There's not a lot of extra equipment you have to purchase, and it's fully web-based. No software has to be loaded at all on this system. It's it's been out. It's called Envoy. It's just that they don't connect yet to the offenders list, but they're planning on doing that in 2019. So I included that in our budget. Any questions?
Okay, so otherwise in technology, We are recommending that we add full-time secretarial support to the technology department. We did have back in, I believe, 2013, we had 2 positions. One was an educational technology specialist, and the other was a technology secretary, and those were not replaced because of retirements and needed funds within the budget. However, we are starting to feel the impact of that. Our tech guys, our computer technicians have had to take on a lot more responsibilities with inventory and iPad handouts and signing of courseware to students. So they're doing a lot of those secretarial duties. And also one of our secretaries here at Central Office took on some of the other duties, purchasing POs and things like that. So we really need to upgrade our inventory system. We've purchased Skyward, and we want to make sure we have somebody that is dedicated to controlling our inventory, tagging items as they come in, making sure they get into the inventory system. So that is what the full-time secretarial support is for. Any questions on that one?
So right now, as far as inventory, do we have multiple people handling that inventory?
Right now, I have our technicians will do the inventory. And we have, it's something that I really don't want to see our technicians do that. I mean, we have to use them for what they were hired for. Doing inventory is not really, you don't have to be technical to do inventory. So it's kind of wasting their
And I would
precious
think
time.
too, I mean, if you're having multiple people trying to deal with the inventory, I could see you opening up to items being lost,
Yes.
miscategorized.
Yeah.
Yes.
You
So
are
this
very
secretary
correct.
Yes.
would he or she oversee everything, or would they do the actual
They would
tracking the
they would do
inventory?
the actual tracking and data entry if there was needed. Like, so some of the inventory can be scanned and tagged and things like that, but there's still like a data entry piece that needs to be done as we input it into Skyward. We need to make sure that our old records from our prior system, CSIU, that those get transitioned over properly. And it's not just technology that inventory needs to be up to date. It's CTE equipment, anything that the buildings are purchasing on their own, that sometimes I believe, and I'll be honest, sometimes they get missed because we don't have that one person to say, here you go, you tag it, make sure it's in, you know what I mean? So that's what the issues we're having are currently.
And with the building projects, both buildings, now's the time to do it.
So we're looking at this secretarial support would not just be dealing with the iPad, but
You're correct.
multiple
Yes.
departments.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a few things that the technicians do that that secretarial position would be able to help, And with the students in the courseware, we'll have students moving from a school during the year. Well, we have the assistant technology coordinator stop what he's doing and have to move students in courseware. And it's something that a secretary could possibly do. So it would help quite a bit.
Anything else on that one? Okay. Safety and security. This was one of the big items that there was concern over when we did the budget survey. In time with the heightened security, school security issues with the new Safe to Save program, we want to make sure that we have those supports in our schools when we need them. So we are recommending a full-time school resource officer to supplement the one that we have currently. Also, on the safety and security side, we're looking at installing bleeding control stations in our schools. Buildings and grounds, I'm going to have Mr. Nelson come up and talk about the 2 full-time custodians. I believe it was 2 years ago through the budgetary process. We were looking for some ways to save some money, and we thought that a possible restructure of our head custodian positions would work. However, you're not always right. So, we tried it, and we didn't eliminate any people through eliminating those positions. We just didn't replace retirement. So I'm gonna have Dave talk about why we need those. We think we need those 2 full-time custodians back.
Yeah, one of the things you remember, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago, we eliminated 2 full-time head custodians that retired. We didn't replace them. I shouldn't say we eliminated. We just didn't replace the 2 that retired. We thought we could split the buildings among 2 buildings for each head custodian. They'd be okay going back and forth. What didn't work out was when we're short people, they cover the shortage. So if we have somebody that doesn't show up, if it's a 4-hour or an 8-hour position, there's nobody here to do it. So they were the ones that were jumping in there to do that. And I'm going to say probably if we get everybody on board by the end of April, which is probably what it's going to take till we get all the clearances done, if they all show up, that'll be the first time we'll be fully staffed on custodial all year. Right now we're 4 short. 4 part-timers, and we have nobody to cover. So we have people that are, putting in a couple extra hours here and there, but we're really not getting the cleaning that we need. So we'd like to add these 2 positions back, have 1 head custodian at each of the elementary schools, and hopefully make our buildings a little cleaner. So I think the elementary school principals would agree with this wholeheartedly. I see 1 or 2 of them shaking their heads yes back there. So we tried it. It didn't work out. So,
have you seen with the lack of staff? Have you seen to get the areas clean that needed to be cleaned? Are you just not cleaning those areas, or are you incurring overtime from these employees staying extra?
A little
to
of
get that
both.
stuff done?
A little of both. Tonight we have 4 people out tonight, and we're 4 people short. So basically, we're 8 positions short tonight. There's no way we're going to get it done.
And how does that affect the, I won't say the safety, but the cleanliness of the school as far as the sanitary?
That's what we're hoping to improve. Yeah. I mean, we're doing the best we can now with the resources that we have. And I think they do a good job, but I think it could be better if we had a little more coverage, a little bit more oversight.
So we've consistently had 4 positions not filled?
About the time I get filled up, we lose 2 or 3 or 4. Yeah, at one point I was 7 short. We hired 5. We had 4 out of the 5 that ended up showing up on the day they were supposed to start.
Are there other districts having the same issue?
Yeah.
How many are there total, Dave?
Total custodians?
Yeah. When you say you're missing 4 to 8
Uh,
nights, I was curious what percentage of the total is.
It's about 46, 47. In each elementary school, the ideal setup is, and we had this for years, and I don't want to say it's ideal, it's what we had. Maybe that's a better way to say it. We had 3 full-time people and 3 part-time people that do the entire elementary school. One of those full-time people is on day shift, so you only have 2 full-time people on night shift and 3 part-time, and they clean the entire school. The other full-time person that's on day shift is there during the day to set up, to tear down, clean up messes, whatever happens during the day. High school and the intermediate school they're a little deeper, and because they're bigger buildings, they have a few more people, but we're struggling in the elementary schools. And tonight in 2 different elementary schools, I've got a full-time person and I've got 2 part-time people out in 2 elementary, same 2 elementary schools. So we're short in both of them, so we're really struggling.
We're dealing with the same thing in cafeteria as well.
Yes.
Look at her face, she just rolls her eyes. As we hire people, they go out. These 2 are interviewing all the time. People take jobs, then don't show up, or we think they don't understand that it's going to be a job. It's going to be, especially custodian, that's going to be a physical job. And some of these part-timers are taking this as their second job and probably thought this would kind of be an easy thing to do at night, and there's a lot to do at night. So.
Okay. other questions on the custodial positions? Okay, so other items, community outreach. So we included funds in the budget for the newsletters. Hopefully, you all received the newsletter, the Eagle, in the mail over the past week or two. And also, so we're going to do that 3 times over next year. And we also included just a small amount of funds so we can continue providing small, refreshments for Mrs. Kroom's coffee, conversation, and community events that she's been hosting.
And as we shared, we've shared with you, we're going to do 5 of them next year. We were doing 3 this year. We're going to do 5 of them next year. They will replace the January community dinner where everyone is invited, and we're going to do the same topics. So we will do the same topics through the school year as well as put them in the newsletter. So we think this plan will reach many more people than the community dinner did.
Since we're talking about this, we need to make some improvements. I don't know how it is in Washington Township, if it's all the same zip code, but Dover School District has different zip codes. Thomasville, York, I talked to one person that's in Spring Grove District and got the newsletter because they got a Dover zip code. And there is no name or anything put on this Dover Eagle. So it's not reaching people that do not have a Dover zip code. Because we have York zip codes and Thomasville zip codes.
We will look into that. I think when we put it out to the printing company, we did include our boundaries, our district boundaries with the printing company. So if there's specific people or examples, addresses that anyone may have that did not get the newsletter, if you could give us that information, and we'll reach out to our printing company to see what happened.
To improve that. Mm-hmm.
And I will say too, like I live in East Berlin, even though it's Dover School District, so I actually received Bermudian Springs newsletter too, but it's because of my zip code.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's maybe how they did it as well.
Did you receive the
I did receive
Eagle?
the Eagle.
Good.
So
Okay.
I received both.
Wow, keep up.
Well, how do they get the addresses of these people?
It's a database that they have of all the addresses. It's like any other wide mailing. So say you have a Giant in your area and the Giant wants to put out the circular to all the people that in the surrounding area. That's the list that they use to do our mailing. They do it by a boundary and they get the addresses in there, in that boundary.
I think it would be difficult for the mailing companies to be able to separate that out, which
Right.
is probably why that happens.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the technology to draw that line
Right.
and say, okay,
Right.
don't print these addresses.
Yeah, and also, if we did it differently, if we do it by our tax rolls, then we don't include people who are renting.
Right.
And if we do it by Dover Township's database that they have, we're not including any of the other townships.
Right.
So it's really hard, and we thought this would get the widest amount of coverage, so we could send that out. But again, if there is people that
please let
aren't
us know.
getting it, please let us know.
Sometimes I know, just from the company that I work for, we sometimes will mail mailers out and they use the zip +4. That breaks it down a little bit more in depth there to try to pinpoint certain areas of a specific zip code. So maybe that's a
I can ask
option,
them.
but they should know. They should know,
Yeah.
how to do
Yeah.
that. That shouldn't be up to us to have to do that. But,
Are you finished, Charlie?
Well, it didn't answer my question because like on Thomasville, Beesecker Road is Thomasville. Now, I'm not gonna go around door to door and ask for their names of people. How is a person that delivers the Thomasville mail supposed to know that they're in the Dover School District? Or get the flyer, the Dover Eagle, to put in their mailbox?
Again, we can talk to the printing
Yep,
company
we'll talk to the
and see
printing
how that
company.
works.
That's the process. Yeah.
I know it's a complicated thing, but you know,
Yeah.
and I don't know if there's other zip codes in the Dover district or not when you go down like to the Bull Road and you get more to York.
Well, and there's several in Washington Township. We
There's
have
what?
several zip codes in Washington Township.
6.
So you asked, so I'm giving.
Thank you. No, thank
no,
you. And like
yeah.
I said, if there's anybody that you know didn't get it, please let us know and we'll make sure.
Because that can help us
they're
track down
included.
where the problem is
Yeah.
specifically, yeah. So Thomasville,
Thomasville, and like I said, I talked to one in Spring Grove and got it because of Dover address.
okay.
And there's probably that issue in Washington Township because you've got Wellsville,
That's right.
Dillsburg,
That's right.
East Berlin.
That's right. Yep,
So some of those Dillsburg, Wellsville people.
they just might overlap, yep.
Question regarding the full-time resource officer, the 135,000 there, that is strictly for that contract. There's no benefits or anything associated with that, is there, or is there?
Those benefits are included in that cost. That's what we are billed by Northern Regional. So we don't have to pay additional, like,
Right.
we don't pay their benefits. Northern Regional pays their benefits.
Right.
So that's all inclusive of their contract.
So in essence, we'll be paying for 2 at that cost next year if this is
Correct.
approved,
Yeah.
is that correct?
And that also includes additional hours, so when they come to our football games and things like that, that includes their additional hours too.
Okay, all right.
And
Will
we-
there be any attempts to try to garner any grant money or anything like that for that? I know that's come into play in the past.
Yes, yes. We just did one safety grant that, rumor has it, every district's getting approximately 55,000. So that was planning to offset some of the purchase of the cameras at the high school. But there is another safety grant that comes out, I want to say in May, that Brad will apply for. But yes, we go for every grant we can. It used to be there were tons of grants out for school resource officers to get it up and running, and it was a 3-year grant. I think because they're so prevalent now in districts that there just isn't as much grant money out there.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And the last piece under other branding and mission, vision, paraphernalia, as you know, we reapproved our mission and vision, and our goal for next year is to have new banners up. We think we need something in the boardroom, in all of the buildings, and make sure that everything is advertised in all around the district. That is a cost, so we waited to budget for that for next year.
Okay, other preliminary budget components that are kind of already set for us. In the budget, you'll have salary increases that are budgeted as per the contract requirements. For increases, admin, Act 93 is budgeted at 3%. Professional is budgeted at 2.9%, and support professionals for next year are budgeted at 4.1%. In the 2019-20 year, we are going to attempt to take 2 funding holidays. We have had a very, very good claims year last year, and from what I'm seeing this year again. This year we're taking 1 funding holiday. It's approximately $500,000 savings, and in 1920 we'll be taking hopefully 2 funding holidays, and that'll gain us about $1 million. Please keep in mind that that's a one-time savings. So when we're talking about future expenditures down the road, the deficit would be $1 million higher from what we would be presenting today. We are passing on a 0% increase in healthcare premiums for employees because of those good rate years, which is a really good thing. And some of that has to do with some plan design changes that we have been able to get through negotiations. And then PSERS rate increase, the increase for this next year is 2.57%. In 17-18, it was 33.43%, and the certified rate for 18-19 is 34.29%. So that compounded on top of salary increases, of course, is creating some increases in the budget. Note the 2019-20 rate, however, is lower than projected from last year at 34.79%. That's the projection from last year. Okay, so when we look at the preliminary budget overview, our projected opening general fund balance as of July 1st, 2019, at this point looks to be about $18.2 million. Our current budgeted revenues for next year look to be at $63.4 million, giving us total available resources of $81.6 million. If you take out the expenditure budget that we have formulated preliminarily, it's going to be at $65.37 million, giving us a projected ending general fund balance at June 30th of 2020. I apologize, that date is incorrect, of $16.26 million. That leaves us with and I apologize again, I have another incorrect date, 2019-2020 budget deficit of $1,977,378. Again, that includes that one-time savings for the funding holiday of $1 million. So without that, we'd be looking at almost a $3 million deficit. Please note this information is preliminary, and over the next coming months, we will be looking to refine it as new information comes available from state funding, federal funding, and so on. I think there's some variables there that may change some of our numbers. Who knows, though, if we'll have a state budget by the time we are looking to approve this. So preliminarily, we are looking, the numbers that were put out by PASBO for basic ed funding looks like it may increase approximately $300,000. Special education may increase about maybe $100,000, so there could be a $400,000 swing here. I don't know. At this point, we remain conservative and budget at what we know right now. Okay, so again, one of our goals is to manage and control our fund balance levels. We will need to use general fund balance for the 1920 expenditures. Remember, too, that we are using about $2.4 million in capital reserve funds that we moved over to that fund to be able to lower the risk or lower the tax impact for the project. So this is just an overview recap of where we stood at the end of 2018 as far as fund balance goes. We had about $5.2 million in non-spendable, and that is our balance at LBT. As you can see, that big uses and transfers number of $1.3 million, that was what came about through a good claim experience year and also through changes in our healthcare plans. Under general fund committed, we ended the year with $5.2 million committed for PSERS. $500,000 committed for technology, $907,000 for medical costs, and debt principal remained the same at $2.4 million. At the end of last year, we assigned monies to capital reserves, again, to offset the costs of high school renovations or the capital project for the new high school at $1 million. And we had since transferred those funds out of the general fund to the capital reserve fund. And then our unassigned at the end of last year sat at $4 million, which is 6.41% of budgeted expenditures, and the required is to be 8% or less. So our total general fund balance at the end of last year was $19.4 million. In the capital reserve fund, we had about $12.3 million, leaving us with total fund balances of $31.7 million. So what that look like for next year? In 2019, based on this budget and the deficit of $1.9 million, we will look to end our year, this year actually, with a fund balance of $18.2 million, and in 2020, we will look to end at $16.2 million also. Through the deficit, we plan just to use some of our PSERS money, as you'll see in a minute. I do have some slides that show the PSERS liability leveling out and hopefully beginning to make slight decreases, very, very slight decreases. So that's where we're planning on using some of that fund balance for next year. This just shows our fund balance levels as they've moved throughout the past couple of years. You can tell when we were in capital projects and we were building up, and then we moved some of the funds out so we can make sure that we have those funds available for our projects. And again, same thing here. This is the capital project fund balance, which shows the increase up because of those transfers in. I know this is a little hard to see. These are the PSERS employer contribution rates. I'll show you the slide here where it shows where we're at. So I believe in 2023-24 is when we start to see that slight decline. So we go 22-23 from 36.84 down to 36.3. One good sign that we're seeing, again, as I mentioned earlier, is that the PSERS rates was projected at 34.79 for the 1920 year, and it is at 34.29. Okay, so proposed considerations for the 1920 budget. The preliminary budget has a increase of about 1.2% in it for the capital project, monies for the capital project. That's a 0.27 millage increase to start to fund some of the bond payments. So this chart just shows where we would be if we raise taxes to all the certain percentages. So obviously, the current, if we do nothing, we will not gain any additional revenue. The preliminary budget, the 1.21%, our mills will go up 0.27 to 22.643, which gives us additional revenue of about $357,000. So that $357,000, coupled with approximately $320,000 from last year that we raised the 0.27 from 1819 that we raised the 0.27 mills, that's help funding our projects. So as it goes forward and those monies start to build up a little bit, then we will have to transfer in less from our capital projects funds to fund those bond payments. And at the end of the 7-year period where we said we were going to increase the taxes 0.27 mils, will be fully funded on those bond payments. So that 1.21% increase in taxes, the 0.27 mils, is about an average of $32 per taxpayer impact. So you can see there the chart that shows the increases, and it goes the whole way up to the Act 1 index of 3.1%. If you were to raise to the index, you would gain additional revenue of about $2.1 million over last year. That's an impact of $194 to the taxpayer per year.
So the 1.21% increase is just covering the bond phase-in.
Yes.
So we didn't include anything to try and help reduce that debt otherwise.
No. Any other questions?
Question regarding the Lincoln Benefits Trust.
Yes.
Where are you typically, where would you like to see our, where do you want that balance to remain? Like right now it's at 5, and I know you're talking about taking 2 funding holidays next year, which would bring it down to 4, but that's still quite a bit higher than what it was not that long ago. So where is your target goal?
My target rate would be about 3.5 million. You want to keep about 2 years reserve in there, 1 or 2 years reserve in there for claims. So we would pull out, that money is there for claims, and we actually are required to have a year's worth balance in there. So 3 to 3.5, and no, like our expenditure budget is increasing too. So that's where I would like to see it. It was at that level not so long ago. But through negotiations and plan design changes, we have definitely increased that, and I think it would behoove us to use that and not have such a large balance there.
Okay. Does it stand to reason then that if at the end of next year, at the end of 1920, if there's still $4 million in there, that there's possibility that you could take other funding holidays if the trend continues and we don't have a lot of claims? There's potential that you could have some.
Yeah, so there's some options. You can do that. Some districts actually lower their rates.
Okay.
Other questions on LBT or any tax impact? So in the preliminary budget, again, just that 0.27 tax increase sitting there for the bond. Okay. Here is our 4-year look back for our tax millage. And you'll see we raised up a little bit from last year. We did do a 2% tax increase last year. So without any additional increase, you'll see the preliminary budget there on the right-hand side. On the bottom, that's where you'd be with just the 2.27. That would be if no other district raised taxes. If you rose to the index, you see the top arrow up there. That's where we would sit again if no other district raised their taxes for next year. Okay. And here's the preliminary budget overview again. So our next steps, we will continue to monitor the budget and make adjustments as necessary. We're gonna, start to get in better estimates for insurance rates and hopefully get a better idea of the state budget and where those items may land. If there's any additional revenue sources out there, we would definitely include them. So we'll do that. We would ask the board to provide us any direction as to the options that we put out to you tonight. We will be getting thoughts and discussion in our Human Fiscal Committee on Thursday, and then give the whole board the opportunity to come back and give us any, I guess it was done. Give us any feedback on things that maybe we want to pull out or anything like that. The preliminary budget will be on the April voting agenda on that Tuesday, so we have a whole month to get feedback, and we will release it for public inspection at that time. And then through April and May, we'll continue to review it and final adopt in May, and move forward with the 1920 budget. Okay? Questions or comments?
Okay. It's a lot of information to absorb.
Are we done now?
Okay.
Also, if you could provide us with any feedback, we kind of changed it up a little bit this year with doing the presentation on Tuesday in March to make sure there was appropriate time for public, for board to comment in public before we put it on for the April agenda. Okay, so just let me know if there's anything that we need to change in the process moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Benko. Now that we are an hour and a half into our meeting, we are at our first public comment period. So if anybody has anything they'd like to comment on, you may come to the microphones and state your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing nobody on the move, Board President's communication. We did have an executive session prior to tonight's meeting for personnel and legal matters, and also to meet with our union representation regarding the grievance that you see listed on the agenda, item 502. The board has decided to remove that item from tonight's agenda because we do need some further information before we can move forward on that. So with that, I will move on to the approval of the minutes category. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 19th, 2019 board meeting.
So move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Benko?
Mrs. Britton, are you still on the line?
I'm still here.
Oh.
Did it come through?
It did not. So if you could just hold 1 minute, I'm going to close
Okay,
this.
let me try again.
Well, hold on. You're not even showing up on my list. So
Okay.
give me 1
Let me-
minute.
Do you want me to log in maybe?
Give me 1 second, please. I apologize. 1 minute, please. Could you just give me your voice vote for now?
Sure, I vote in favor. Yay.
Thank you. Okay, let's see if she comes up on the next one. We may have to have you do that for all of them.
And
You
the
want me to
motion
try to
carries.
log out and log back in?
No, that's okay.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 21st, 2019 Board Planning Meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko?
You are there now, Mrs. Britton.
What was that?
You are on my list now, so you should be able to
Okay.
go.
Did you get it?
Yes, thank you.
And the motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our consent agenda. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve all items listed under the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion?
We have a retirement of 25 years, Ms. Goforth is on the agenda tonight, so many thanks to her for all her efforts. 25 years, a long time, that's a lot of kids. So congratulations.
Mrs. Kroom, could you just touch on 702 with the revised calendar and the Act 80 days as well that are listed on there as item 720?
So the revised calendar is up for approval to add a professional development day on Friday, April 18th, I think is the correct date. We, in calculating the calendar and with the snow days and the crazy February, recognized that we needed to add that in order for the teachers to get their 190 days. The majority of the teachers have already completed that day. So there is only a small amount of teachers who need to do the work for that day, and that will be an online course for them to do as they wish. And the other thing on there are the Act 80 days. So each year, I ask the board to approve a number of Act 80 days that allow us some flexibility should we get snow days late in the early in the spring, late in the winter, in which it really affects our calendar, especially as we go towards graduation. So by your approving this time, that gives us the flexibility to use it. Additionally, our 3-hour early dismissals is Act 80 time as well, and that by PDE has to also be approved yearly. So while the full days will not be most likely used, hopefully no snow, more snow, we just need to have them approved just in case.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none. Mrs. Benko?
I'm just getting item 720 coming up here for approval. Is this the entire consent?
I reopened the voting.
And the motion carries. We'll move on to our curriculum category. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the proposal for the administrator professional development.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion?
So I'd just like to share that this is a request that Dr. Maloney and I are making of the board to consider allowing us to take the building level administrators on a professional development opportunity in August. It is a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and it is in the Poconos. It is a leadership retreat in which we would work together, do some leadership skills, plan for the future. We believe these types of opportunities are very important for our leadership team to get professional development very much geared at them. Additionally, this opportunity provides Act 45 credit, which we all are required to have. So we think that we would prefer to do this together, and it just helps us as a team as we move forward, the district with the initiatives we have to kind of gel and to really look at the mission of the district and our leadership.
And for clarification, this is money that is already budgeted that could have been spent individually with each of them doing their own thing versus going as a team together. Okay. Any other questions or conversation on that? Okay, Mrs. Benko. And the motion carries. Next, we'll move on to our Capital Project Committee. And at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve change order number 6 for York Excavating Company, LLC, in the amount of $13,212.32.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion?
You have a little discussion on exactly what that is.
Yes, thank you.
Same thing.
Evening. This is a change order, kind of initiated this one a couple weeks ago. In the back of the school where we're going to store the band trailers, for lack of better words, kind of right behind the auditorium, there's a turnaround area. So when they take the band trailers back there, they can kind of spin around and then back them into a parking space. And it's at the top of a retaining wall, which the retaining wall is about 7 feet. And it's another 20 feet down, straight down to the creek. It does have a chain link fence there, and it's a little curb about 8 inches high. I just felt that it wasn't safe and wanted to see a guardrail in that area. So this is to add a guardrail in the back where this turnaround area is, and also a guardrail in the front where on the student side, when they come in, it's fairly steep coming down off of Intermediate Avenue, and it's going to be a retaining wall there about 7 feet tall. And even though it's a little bit of grass between the two, I just thought it might be a good idea to have guardrail there so that somebody didn't come in too fast, lose control, not paying attention, whatever, and go down over the bank. So it's kind of what these two are. This was something that it started with in the back and it progressed to the front. So it was something that I saw, I didn't like it and thought it might be a good idea, so.
Anybody else? Okay, Mrs. Benko. And the motion carries. Next, we will move on to the Policy Committee report with Mrs. Kroom.
Okay. So you will remember that we have contracted with PSBA to go do an exhaustive update of all of our school policies. So the Policy Committee, last time we met, we put together a procedure that we're going to follow as we get these policies. So the first step, when the policies come to, they are populated on board docs for us. So they take the legally bound PSBA policy, they match it with our own handbooks and any changes we might want, and they populate board docs with these policies. Jen, Amy, and I will be the first ones to take a look at them to make sure that these are what we want and they do match what we've talked about and what we've used in the past. The second step is we are going to take the policies as we get them from PSBA and bring them to the policy committee. Mrs. Herman sits on this policy committee, and Amy is going to send out to each of you the dates of our policy committee each month in case you would like to join us. So at that point, we will review and go over each of those policies, and we will decide either they will come to the board at the next board meeting on Thursday night as a first read, and then they will be approved the following month, or they will go on Thursday night to committee. So some of them, as you'll see this Thursday as I review, they're just legal policies. We didn't need to make many changes, and they can go right to the board for first and second reading. So, and then they will, or if they need to go to the committee for further discussion to revise. At that point, if they're revised, they go back to PSBA, they do what they need to do, and they come back to us. So this Thursday, I will review with you all of the 0-0 policies. We've gotten all of them. We've looked at them at the policy committee, and we've done what we needed to do, and we are recommending that they are all ready for your approval. So on Thursday night, I will kind of go over some of the highlights of each one that were changes from our previous, or if they are no longer policies, and we can talk about them, and then they will be up for approval in April next month. All right, so that policy, does that make sense, that process? The 0-0s were pretty easy. They were short and they were to the point. I'm assuming they won't be as easy as we move along, as they get more in depth and more, for our needs. So that will be our process starting Thursday night.
Okay, any questions for Mrs. Kroom? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the Dover Eagle Foundation. The foundation board did meet on March 6th as scheduled. At that meeting, they discussed their bylaws and did a thorough review of them to see if there were any changes to them, and they do have a few thoughts that they're moving forward with that Mr. Pratt will be assisting them with. And they also talked about committee structures within the organization, things such as the fundraising committee and stuff like that. So the foundation is off to a strong start moving forward. There's a lot of excited people there. Still looking for a few more board members for the organization. So exciting things happening with that.
Yeah, very much.
Is there anything you want to add?
No, they're very excited. They're ready to move on. It's quite a diverse group. So I think we'll see some exciting things come out of this group.
Are they getting many requests for grants or anything like that
That happens in the fall. So they followed that process. They might change that process, but they followed that process. We are going to we were really delayed this year, changing the bank account to the new group. So we want to bring them to be recognized at the board when we kind of get ourselves all settled. I think we're still not even sure who writes the checks and how they're written and who they're written to. So we haven't quite worked that out yet, but they have been awarded. We know who's getting them.
Thank you. Next is our Unity Council report. Mrs. Maley.
I actually was not there, so Mrs. Kroom.
So I'm going to share. Our February meeting was really interesting. Amy Parker, who is a teacher from the intermediate school, is currently working on an endorsement to her teaching certificate called Diversity and Student Resilience Specialization Program, and she's doing it at York College. So she led the committee through a bias awareness activity where she put pictures up in like a PowerPoint, and you were to write down the first thing you thought about when you saw that. And then you met as a group and you talked about that. And it really, the purpose of it was to uncover all of our biases we might not know we have. And the conversation was really great. And so we talked about the difference between bias and, some different terms, but it was really a great activity. After that, Amy then shared with us a socioeconomic presentation about Dover. And she received her data from York County. So she presented that to us. After that, if you remember, last month we went over the survey results we gave everybody, and what we did this month is we we put them into 3 headings: culture, professional development, and curriculum and policy. And we prioritized our district needs and have decided that each one of those is going to be a subcommittee of the diversity committee. And everyone picked their first, second, and third choice. Rachel, we will be in touch with what choice you would like, and what subcommittees we are going to do. We also discussed how do we share the data with the staff and the students that we took on this, and we decided that we'll share that data as it seems appropriate. So if we're doing professional development activities with our teachers, that might be a great time to do it. So we'll share that data as we think is really great. And probably the most important thing that came out of this meeting is next year, every building is going to have a diversity council. It will be run by the building principal, and then a unity council. The district unity council has a representative from every single building. So that person will sit and partner with the principal and create a building level unity council. And our goal is next year that every meeting will have an activity, a diversity or unity activity, and that the teacher will bring it back to the building and do that with the staff. And we will then move the staff through unity activities and diversity activities, and that we will work in our committees, and we're going to start looking at policies to make sure that the right wording's in policies. We're going to look at curriculum and materials to make sure that there are no biases in them, and professional development for staff. So we were very excited. I think Kirsten would agree. We got a lot accomplished last month, and we're very excited. We have our final meeting for the year in next month, but then the administrators have some diversity training in June, and we have a speaker for August to kick off the year about unity and diversity. So I think that committee has done an awful lot of work. Yeah, it's exciting.
Questions for Mrs. Kroom? Okay, moving on to York Adams Academy. Mr. Emmett could not be with us tonight, but he did ask me to share with you that we have 18 seats at the academy, and we are currently having 11 students enrolled there. So that is the latest statistic on that. Moving on to York County School of Technology, Mr. DeLauder.
Okay. First, I was not able to attend the JOC meeting. It happened to be the Thursday of musical week, and I totally forgot about it with musical going on. So I did not attend that meeting, but I did have the opportunity to attend the authority meeting where their current gymnasium project was again discussed. They started moving out of the design phase and looking at the design, or creating the construction documents. Per the request of the School of Technology, those documents were sent to a project manager to estimate cost. When they came back, they were looking at a cost for the finished project of over $12 million. They pared it down to basically being just the gymnasium itself, with no locker rooms, bathrooms, other than the public bathrooms. So no team rooms, no official rooms, anything like that. We're still at 11. It's like 11.5 for the cost. Obviously, there was a large discussion among the group about whether or not we would want to continue forward with this project, knowing that there's no way that we can, for a finished project, that we can come down, over $2 million with that on the scope of that project. A vote was taken, and it was 8-4 to continue on with the project and sending it out to bid. I will tell you that I did vote against that project, as I don't feel that I just feel it's a waste of money to continue down this road and spending more money knowing that we're not going to get that into our budget of $10 million. So again, they did vote to send it out to bid. They're going out to bid in April, and we're hoping to get those back. I think it's like the end of May is the closing date, and will be presented in June for those bids. But I can tell you, from my perspective, it doesn't look good. I did tell them that I would not come back to here and ask for more money for the project, knowing that I would probably get tarred and feathered if I did that. So, and they understood that, and most of the folks there said that they would not do that to their respective districts as well. that's where we stand.
Can I ask a question on that? So the project that is going out to bid, is it the project that includes the team rooms or the project that does not?
They are, they're sending it out as a full bid, but then my understanding is they're going to send out as a full bid, but then they're going to have alternate, or I get base bid and then the alternate to do the finish, everything else. Their other option was to allow the students out there, obviously, because that's a unique situation, to do the plumbing, electrical, and masonry work, but they said that would be, probably 10 years down the road before they would be able to complete all that. So like I said, I'm not feeling very hopeful at this point that that's going to come to fruition.
Any questions for Mr. DeLauder? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to LIU with Mr. Deschaux.
All right. Fortunately, I do have a couple of things to go over. I know we're trying to get out of here. I just want to start off by saying that I do recommend that we approve their budget, but there are items in there that need to be brought up to the new director, Dr. West, for some questions and some questions to our own district on possibly saving the district some money. I've handed out a bunch of handouts. If you look at the primary job title, the Act 93 salary, the LIU currently has 43 Act 93 salaries, totaling up to $4 million. That does not include the director or the new position that they're hiring for the assistant director. Just in comparison, our district has 25 Act 93 salaries that includes our superintendents, and we only spend $2 million. So there's, I know Dr. West has said that he's going to look through some of the programs, the job titles, and possibly cut some positions. He's not sure. He's going to go to the districts and see what they want. So there could be some savings, but it is a concern that they have 43 Act 93 salaries. If you go to the packet that is labeled programs, ADMs, FTEs, and slots, I'm just going to bring up two of the points that I would like our district to look at. If you go down to emotional support for Dover, we have 19 and a half students there. And then therapeutic and emotional support, we have 20.5 students. If you leave that paper and go to program costs, just those two programs alone cost the district $1.5 million. With the LIU only charging, and this is with salary and benefits, for an emotional support teacher, it's only $66,000. For the therapeutic emotional support, it's $61,000. So we're paying $66,000 for a teacher, but yet we're spending $1.5 million for roughly 40 students. So I definitely would task the district to possibly looking in maybe the next couple of years to possibly bringing that to the district. I know that certain districts, if you look at, well, just in hindsight, there's 14 school districts in York County, and we are the third highest spending rate at 3.5. The only two districts that are higher than us is Dallastown at 4 million and our neighbor West York at 4.4 million. So even if we could just bring those two programs to the district, that would cut 1.5, and that would drop us down to right around the 10th lowest district in York County. So I would definitely recommend looking into that. Also, if you look at our ballot that we're voting on, I was sitting in a different district's area, and they have found somebody for their schools, so I will no longer be on the board for the LIU come June. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Deschaux? Okay, so hearing none, at this time I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the 2019-2020 Lincoln Intermediate Unit 12 General Operating Budget.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Mrs. Benko? And the motion carries. In front of you, you should have, as Mr. Deschaux mentioned, a ballot for the directors that are up for election for the LIU. If you would take a minute, please, to fill those out before we leave tonight and give them to Mrs. Benko so that she may turn those in to the LIU. Okay, next up, we have Mr. Rawhauser with Legislative and York Learning Center.
Okay, well, the president wants to cut $7 billion out of education. And the governor thinks that if we raise minimum wage, that's going to solve a lot of problems. In some areas, I think it will, and other areas, it's going to create more of a burden on our senior citizens who earn fixed incomes. Learning Center will meet next week. And for comprehensive planning, I have nothing new to report. We'll be meeting again first Tuesday in April.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Rawhauser? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to PSBA. Mrs. Brinton. You still there, Mrs. Brinton?
Yep, I'm still here. Sorry, I couldn't.
Anything on PSBA for us tonight?
There's not much. The new legislative session just started over the past month or so. There is, however, PSBA Advocacy Day 2019, April 29th in Harrisburg from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. All PSBA member school directors are invited to attend at the Capitol. This year, PSBA will be partnering with the Pennsylvania Association of Intermediate Units and the Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators to strengthen advocacy and focus on discussing critical issues in public education. And there's no cost to attend.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Brinton? Okay, we'll move on to Mrs. Herman with the Dover Industrial Committee.
No report. The next meeting is next Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Kroom, Superintendent's report.
All right, we have started to discuss with the administration the possible reconfiguration of our 4 elementary schools. We did some brainstorming this week and determined that we are now in the process of creating a plan for the board, and our first step is to task the transportation to truly look at the transportation, look at what configuration would look like with the busing, what the cost would be, what the time involved would be, what drop-off times would be, what would school calendars, like what the timing of the bell schedules would be. We've already discussed this at the comp plan and the superintendent's community coffee and conversation. So we are in the process of gathering our concerns and information, and our goal is to have a plan of how we move forward sometime later in the summer. We are also very busy planning end-of-year activities in each of the building, professional development during those last 3 days of early dismissals. We have scheduled summer administration already planned and ready to go, and we are in the process of planning our August in-service days. So very, very busy time. And then finally, spring athletics are in full-fledged. North Salem, Libe, and the high school going very well. However, we do continue to monitor, especially at North Salem and Libe, with the new fields and the temporary fields and transportation, parents coming in and athletes going out and all those kinds of things. Rich and Dave are monitoring and working very, very closely with the building principals. I know Libe, the other day, they watched to see, because we have away teams coming in while buses are going out, and just making sure everyone is following the way they're supposed to go. But we are keeping a very close eye on that, so if you hear anything, let us know. We are trying to nip anything in the bud very quickly. And I think that's it.
With the live softball game, are we allowing the buses to park in the field outside of the fence? I forget what road that is right there. Because they were parked out in the grass.
Up on Oakland Road the other night, I
Yeah.
believe, yeah.
Yeah, there were cars
Mhm.
and buses all through the fields out there.
There were a few cars sitting out in right field, and the bus from the visiting team pulled along there.
Okay, I was just wondering if we're allowing that, or,
Dave, we had talked about grass parking, we were fine with that. yeah.
Okay.
The bus dropped the team off and then left, so when they came back in, all the parking.
no, that's fine, I was just making sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, they're keeping a really good eye on it in case anything pops up.
Any feedback on the new turf field, that being used now for games and everything? Huh?
I haven't heard one bad comment about it from coaches, parents, kids, they all love it.
Good, that's good to hear.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Mrs. Krim? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our miscellaneous category for any other comments or observations from our board members tonight. Anybody have anything?
Yeah, I have something for Mr. Nelson. I have a question concerning the building project. We've had some pretty decent weather the last couple weeks. Would like to hear an update. Are we, I guess my one question is our footprint out of the ground yet? Do we have all our footings in place?
Not all of them. We're about a third out. I'll have a pretty good presentation for you Thursday night.
Okay.
We poured 125 yards of concrete today. So we have the science wing, what I want to call the science wing, the back, it's kind of the back of the building. There's 6 rooms on second floor plus some ancillary storage, prep rooms type stuff. But there's 6 classrooms. We poured the second floor today.
And I'm assuming we're still a ways behind schedule.
We're about 30 days behind right now. So we've made up considerable ground. Weather, I don't want to talk about weather, but let's just say if things keep going the way they are, we're going to make this up in a hurry.
Okay. So you don't feel the need, 'cause my other question was, I know this past weekend was a beautiful weekend, and I know we had discussed bringing crews in on Saturday.
They have been coming in some Saturdays, yes.
Yeah, I just noticed they weren't there on this Saturday.
Yeah, they didn't, if they work a 40-hour week, they don't come in on Saturdays. If they work a 4-day week or 3-day week because of weather, they'll sometimes come in Saturday, usually only for about a half a day. So, but yeah, we've got a lot of steel set. We've got, like I said, we put 120 yards of concrete in today, and we're going to start digging footers again, from what I understand. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
we're moving along. So, I said something about maybe Thursday getting you guys out, but there's too much going on that night. So, it's starting to dry out. So if you want to come out and take a walk, put your old shoes on, give me a call. I'll walk you around. I think you'll be impressed how much is done. So it's
Calling for rain Thursday.
I said we're not talking about that. That's a 4-letter word now.
Well, it's better than the other word.
Neither one of them are good. Anything else?
Anybody else? Okay, I just had one thing today, and I would be remiss if I did not mention that today would be Mr. DeLauder's birthday. So happy birthday, Mr. DeLauder. You couldn't think of a better place to be on your birthday than here, so yeah. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll be at our last public comment period. Anybody? Okay, with that, we'll move on to future meeting announcements. Our board committee meetings will be this Thursday at 6:00 p.m. Our board planning meeting will be at 7:00 p.m. And then our next board action meeting will be at 7 p.m. on April 16th. So if nobody has anything else to discuss tonight, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion, a second. Everybody in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you.